would normally be, you start to assess situations differently, and you start making smarter plays, which help you survive. It's called a challenge for a reason, and as such, it's not for everyone. I've seen people come in and completely quit after 1 or 2 losses, and I've seen others who have lost 20 or 30 tunes before they finally make it. I myself have taken small or extended breaks from hardcore after losing multiple tunes in a row, but I love this challenge, so I keep coming back to it. You may not. If you're feeling frustrated, it's okay to step away for a bit. The community isn't going anywhere and will be here upon your return, should you choose. So that should cover everything. Let me know in the comments if you've played hardcore for a while or you're just jumping into it. Discord, website, and the relevant link videos will all be in the description below. And if you found this guide informative, remember to leave a like. And I'll see you soon. If you're feeling frustrated, it's
May the stars guide you. Farewell. Greetings.
Hello. Good luck, friend.
What is nature's call?
Ishnu Dardiye. Go in peace. Peace be with you. Goddess watch over you.
assist you. Good luck, friend.
Hail to the knight!
I need to get closer.
I am honored. Farewell. Elune be with you. Asha Fela. Greetings. Elune light your path.
I am listening.
Ah, the great outdoors.
goddess watch over you.
There's so much more to running a marathon than the time on the clock when you cross the line. So I spent the last 10 weeks training for a 2:20 marathon out in Valencia, but unfortunately the race didn't quite go to plan. I ended up running 2 hours and 37 minutes, so I'm 17 minutes off my target race time. In today's video I'm going to go over a bit of a breakdown of how the race went, go over some of the reasons why it didn't quite go to plan, as well as share with you my key lessons learned, in the hope that you can take some of this advice and maybe apply it to your future marathons as well. Today's video is episode 12 in my Road to Valencia marathon training series, made in collaboration with Soar Running and Coros. Today will be the last episode in this series, so I just want to say a big thank you for the support, and I have now made a playlist that I will link up here. I've used Soar Running throughout this 10-week training block, throughout my training, and I raced in the kit on Sunday. The marathon shorts were their standout piece of kit for me. Having the ability to carry 6 gels comfortably was an excellent piece of kit to take into the race. The second sponsor on this series has been Coros, and I've used the Pace 2 again throughout this 10-week training block, and it has been an excellent tool to have in my training. If you're like me and do a lot of training on both the treadmill as well as track workouts, the Coros boasts some great features for both of those activity types, and probably my favourite standout features of the watch. The ability to run around a track and get accurate splits with track mode is unrivaled on any watch, and on a treadmill you can literally tell the Coros the pace of the treadmill so that you can get accurate splits when running indoors. So let's start with a breakdown of how the race went. So the Valencia Marathon started at 8:15 on Sunday morning, the 5th of December. Temperature is around 12 degrees, so perfect racing conditions. I woke up about 3 hours prior to the start to have my usual breakfast. I had a bagel and a half with jam. That's just what I've been having in my training, and I know that's usually sits well in the stomach, but not this time. We'll come to that in just a minute. And I arrived at the start line around 45 minutes before the gun went off at 8:15. The start was actually quite chaotic, to be honest with you. I struggled to find somewhere to go to the toilet. There wasn't any portaloos in the sort of area where I was starting. I was starting in the sub-elite category, just behind the elites. And yeah, to be honest, it was a little bit chaotic, so something that Valencia Marathon may want to look at for future editions. Put some toilets, basically, because people were struggling. So the race got underway in a bit of a messy fashion. There wasn't actually a countdown, which I found quite unusual. There was this weird sort of like beating heart that started before the race, like dun 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 dun, and then suddenly just the gun went off, so there's no sort of like 3, 2, 1. So I think it caught some people off guard, and the start was a little bit chaotic, but after about 2 kilometers, some gaps started to open up and everything was plain sailing. I was speaking to a few guys on the start line that also were aiming to run 2:20, which was good, and I decided that I was going to be running with them basically, but these guys actually started off even quicker than I did. So at the time I thought, oh, maybe I've started a little bit slow, and I started to sort of weave in and out of groups to try and catch up and to find myself a pack. I've said in previous videos, but I find running in a group so much easier, and the relative sort of effort you're putting in to be much lower than when you're running on your own. So after around 2 kilometers, I found myself in a group of around 20 to 30 guys, all running what I thought was the right pace at the time, but it turns out I was a little bit on the quick side. So my first few splits on the watch were 3:18. Bearing in mind, to run a 2:20 marathon, I need to split 3:20 per kilometre. And my first few kilometres were 3:18, so 2 seconds fast, then a 3:10, and then a 3:13. So the second and third kilometre there were really too fast. There's no ways about it. Too fast for me. And after this 3 kilometre split, again, I saw it come up on my watch, nice and clear. I knew that I was going too quick, and I made the conscious decision to break away from this main group of 30 guys and drop back, and eventually ended up forming sort of a group just behind them, probably around 4 or 5 guys that I ended up running with for the first 18 kilometres until things started to go wrong. So for the first 5k we went through in 16:20, so 20 seconds quick. I need to get this under control. My target pace through the 5k was 16:40, so a little bit fast, and through the 10k we went through in 32:53. Again, so that was some 20-30 seconds faster than anticipated. So after that initial 10 kilometres, a little bit fast admittedly, we started to settle down into around 3:18 to 3:22 per kilometre, which is exactly the pace I wanted to be running at for the entirety of the race. And things were feeling good. My legs were fresh, my breathing was under control, but unfortunately after 18 kilometres I started to experience some cramping and some side stitching that ultimately led me to walk at around the 20 kilometre point, only for a few seconds just to get those cramps under control, and then I was able to run again. But unfortunately these cramps would then come back again, despite going through the half marathon in around 70 minutes and 50 seconds, so on pace to run 2:20 or maybe just below, but these cramps came back to haunt me, and unfortunately it wasn't my day. I ended up having to jog quite a lot of the race, and yeah, I finished in a time of 2 hours and 37, some 17 minutes slower than my target time. So moving on to some of the reasons why I think the race didn't quite go my way, and the first is definitely my pacing. At the start of the race, going out so fast definitely didn't help my chances of running a 2:20. In fact, it hindered them, and I think was the main cause of my stomach issues on the day. At the time, I wasn't too concerned about going out a little bit fast because I settled down into that race pace after about 10 kilometres, but I think the damage had already been done. I'd sort of pushed past that red line, if you like. There's a very fine line when it comes to running a marathon, and if you go too fast, you dip into that sort of above threshold pace. It's going to come back to bite you basically in the later stages of the race, which I think is exactly what happened for me. So I have no sort of shame in admitting I went out too fast, and next time I will definitely try to work on controlling that and not get too excited by the occasion, and make sure I run my own race, ignore what other people are doing, and try and settle into my own pace much more quicker than I did in Valencia. The second reason I think why the race didn't quite go to plan was because I was actually carrying a little bit of an illness. About 3 weeks prior to the start of the race, I had a bit of a cold. What I thought was a head cold at the time, but unfortunately it lasted a lot longer than usual, for around 2 weeks. If you watch the training series, you'll be able to see that I was under the weather, but I decided at the time to continue training and to push on through. I wanted to make sure I got to the start line as fit as possible, but looking back at it now, I think by training I maybe prolonged the illness a little bit, and yeah, that didn't help going into the race. Throughout this illness, I noticed my heart rate had gone up about 5 beats per minute across my runs. So on my easy runs it would typically be around 135 beats per minute, and it had gone up to 140 for the same sort of pace. And I also found when it came to racing in Valencia, again my heart rate was around 5 beats per minute higher than it would have been for effort, say 3 weeks during the training block. So I was clearly still carrying some sort of illness, even though by the time I got to the start line I was feeling a lot better. I think my illness maybe cleared up 3 or 4 days before the start, and yeah, just I don't think I was fully recovered from that illness, but I had to give it a go. And I don't want this video to be sort of a set of excuses. These are just some of the reasons I think that led to my issues in Valencia. And the third reason I think I had some issues was my nutrition. Now, I used Maurten gels throughout this race. I had a Maurten gel 30 minutes before, and then I planned to take a gel every 6 kilometers throughout the course of the race. and this is something I practiced in training. Looking back at the race, I think I just went for it a little bit too much in terms of taking on fuel. In my training, I would typically do a long run, say a 32-kilometer long run, and I would take 2 gels across that training run. Whereas when it came to the marathon, obviously running at a faster speed, I thought, right, I need to make sure I nail this fueling. So I put in the plan to take a gel every 6 kilometers, and I basically think, looking back at this, that was a little bit too much, a little bit too aggressive in terms of fueling, because by the time I got to 18 kilometers, when I had these stomach cramps, I'd already taken 4 gels at this point. In terms of practicing that fueling, I did it in my training, but not quite to the strict sort of fueling plan I had on race day, so I would practice that a bit more moving forward. So moving on to my key lessons learned from the Valencia Marathon. The first is that bad days happen, and unfortunately sometimes there's nothing you can do about it. So for me on the day, my breathing felt great, my legs felt fresh, but unfortunately my stomach just didn't play ball. So I've also learned that to run your perfect marathon, or to execute your ideal marathon race, you need everything to go your way. You need all the stars to align, and unfortunately for me, my stomach just wasn't playing ball on the day, and it's just one of those things. I had to just accept it, and I accepted it in the race. I was quick to move on and reframe things. I had 2 options basically when this happened: step off the course and sulk about it. The marathon didn't go my way, I'd spent 10 weeks training for it, or I could continue, run a little bit slower than I'd have hoped, but enjoy the experience and take a positive outlook into the next one, which is exactly what I did. I also learned that nutrition is extremely important with the marathon, but it can also jeopardize your race. And for me, I think just overdoing it a little bit early on with the gels led to the stomach issues. By the time I got to 18 kilometers, as I said, I'd already taken on 4 gels, including the one before the race. I'd taken 3 in the race, and that led me to have some issues. So moving forward, I will be a little bit more flexible with my fueling plan. Just like in a race, if you feel like you're going too fast, you can slow down a little bit. If I feel like I'm taking on too fuel or not enough fuel, I'll adjust when and where I take those fuels on board moving forward. So the final lesson I learned from Valencia, and probably the most important lesson to take away from this video, is that there's so much more to running a marathon than the time on the clock when you cross the line. Yes, I would have loved to have seen 2:20 written in the text above the big banner as you run through. Unfortunately, it wasn't my day and I ran 2:37, but I still had a lot to be grateful for. I managed to complete the marathon, which is a great achievement in itself. I was running in a new city, the weather was perfect, I was sharing the course with 30,000 other runners, and you just don't get these opportunities every day. So my advice to anyone running a marathon, and maybe it doesn't go your way, is to adjust your goals, drop the ego, and to try and stay positive until the finish line, and you will be guaranteed to have a positive experience. But yeah, until next time, aspire to run, run to inspire, and we'll see you again soon.
Angle. You see, I thought this was showing Tidus. I didn't read the help text at the top. There you go. That's what I aim to do. There we go.
What brings you?
See, look at this. That's what I wanted to show you.
A shot.
So this guy is seriously good. Okay, that's enough messing about. I need to take him out now. So you see, once you've got this thing going, there's not really too much you can do. Once it has reflect cast on itself, there's not too much that can be done. Because the only way you can slow it down is by casting magic onto Tidus. So I guess this is probably the only situation we're having. If you remember, I told you about those dragons that give you the hourglass item. So if you were to throw an hourglass item, which has the slow effect on Sanctuary Keeper now, and you didn't have Tidus in the front line, then it's going to have no one to reflect the haste back off. So it's going to counter with haste, but it's not going to work because it's just going to cast haste on one of your own characters. So in that sense, it's pretty useful. Damn that stupid curse ability. It's annoying.